Welcome back, everyone, to the Writer's Parachute. We're guiding author and writer dreams to a perfect landing. Today, we have with us another very special guest. We have with us Amanda Hsiung-Blodgett. We're going to talk to her about her book, Little Bun, a bilingual story about feelings. But of course, we always have the housekeeping to get out of the way first. So we would love for you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, subscribe to the Writer's Parachute, either here on YouTube or whatever podcast channel you're listening to us on. That does help us with the algorithm so that other people can find us. Also, we'd love for you to hit that like and share button. Go ahead and send it to your favorite friends, anybody that you know that would like information here on the Writer's Parachute. Also, you can follow us on the Writer's Parachute on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and now on Threads at Writer Parachute. That is Writer Parachute without an S. Also, we have our website, thewritersparachute.com, to get updates on any of the information that you would like. Of course, we also now have, if you would like to get new episodes in your inbox every week, you can go sign up for our newsletter at sendfox.com/thewritersparachute. Of course, we'll have all of these links and many, many more that we'll discuss throughout the show in the show notes for you. So go check those out. So we're going to start the top of the show, as always, with our topic of the week. Here on season 2, we have been talking about reviews. We have talked reviews to death, but it's worth mentioning over and over again. Reviews are very critical and important to all authors and all books. So this time, we're going to talk about the different kinds and types and formats about reviews. So not how you write a review, not what's contained in the review, but how you would actually do a review. There are written reviews, there are video reviews, and there are star ratings. You can do any of the three or a combination of those. If you would like to write a review, you can certainly do that. You can go to wherever you purchase the book and leave a review. Usually, if you're on Amazon, you would go through your receipt and write the review. That way you become a verified purchaser. If you cannot recall where you purchased the book, you can always go to goodreads.com, find the book, and leave a review there. Also, we want to mention, we've kind of forgotten here in season 2, but there's so many places, which is great. BookBub is another source that you can go on and find books and authors. You can follow the authors there. You can also leave reviews. Again, both of them will allow written reviews and or video reviews. So if you're not good at writing, you carry this little handy dandy computer around in your pocket, go ahead and record a video about what you thought of the book. Reviews don't have to be complicated. They can be simply, I like this book, I didn't like this book, I recommend this book to this person, this group, this age, whatever it is you want to say. Just make sure you do that. They are so important, and it's one of the few ways that authors get feedback from their readers. So the next time you read a great book, go ahead and remember to leave a review. If you missed it last week, we talked about creating a review habit to remind yourself to write those reviews. So go check that out. And now we want to get back to our guest. We have with us Amanda Hsiung-Blodgett, and she is also known as Miss Panda. She is a children's author, intercultural language consultant, and language teacher and trainer. Amanda Blodgett is the founder of Miss Panda Chinese. She has a Netflix Word Party Chinese language consultant for a dual language season. Her other publications include the first Mandarin Sounds and Awesome in Chinese Word Book, and she's the host of Playful Chinese Podcast, where she has worked and taught on 4 continents. Her mission is to make the acquisition of the Chinese language simple and joyful for children and learners of all ages. You can reach out to her through LinkedIn, and we'll have that link for her in the show notes. Welcome to the Writer's Parachute, Amanda. How are you today?
Thank you so much, Donna. Always wonderful. It's just been such an honor to be on your show, and then to hear all about your important work and how you share a lot of it, very important knowledge with the authors. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. And, this is such a passion for me. I think everybody can do anything that they aspire to, as long as they have the right knowledge. And I don't think that knowledge should be, spared or held back. So I'm all about sharing what I know. I'm not the be all end all of all knowledge, but at least I can point you in the right direction.
I'm grateful for that. And I know all the listeners feel the same way.
Well, thank you. I really hope so. And like I said, it's more of a passion project for me, and I so enjoy. Plus, I get to read more books and talk to more authors, and learn even more as I go along. So it's a win-win all the way around. So your book features a dual language skills, and I want to know why you think it's important to immerse young readers in multiple languages.
Wow. We live in such a big world, but actually, because of technology, the world is getting smaller and smaller. So immerse children in multiple languages actually is a way to help them to expand their world and their worldview, and also connect with people within the community and also people around them. So we see a lot of children, they might speak another language at home, or children are exposed to different languages at school as a world language. So having these kind of a bilingual, multilingual resources and books for them, that really help them to consolidate their worldview and to see there are different and interesting things around them. The most important thing, it can inspire curiosity and help them to grow empathy.
Right. And I agree with that. And I know this wasn't one of the questions that we talked about, but I'm going to throw it in there anywhere. It's like, I have felt for many years that we probably needed to expand language learning in schools into, younger classes. Typically people don't learn languages until they get in upper grade levels. And I think sometimes that's almost a harder transition. Whereas while they're learning English, even though they speak English or whatever language they're speaking, it is still much easier at that transition stage to learn these other languages and language skills before it becomes almost like set and ingrained. And because I feel like kids that learn as young languages, like it's just easy flow transitioning from one to the other. When you get older, it's almost like you have to think it in English and then translate it in your head before you can say it or write it, which is honestly the most difficult way to speak multiple languages. So what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think for little kids, when they learn a new language, they have no fear. Let's say that. I think most things, the most important things a lot of time for older kids or for adults to learn a language is we have such fear because we are afraid to make mistakes. But for little children, if we look back, for the first language acquisition, they take the whole year, just listen. And finally, they produce the first word. And we were celebrating, we're so excited. But then when you take kids to go to a language class, then we say, now speak. But maybe they have only, learned for a few hours. And so the easier, when they're younger, it's easier, it's simpler. And then even though we say, well, kids are like sponges, but we need to provide them that kind of source of water so they can absorb. So I also agree that learning a language at a younger age or any age, it's more like a brain workout because you actually, your brain needs to work. So I would love to see younger kids can be exposed to different languages and to help them to hear the sound. So later on, it's easier for them to retrieve that information, that sound, when they go into a formal learning.
Right. And like I said, as a former reading specialist, I do know that children who speak or are aware of multiple languages or exposed to multiple languages also read very well, because a lot of the words, even as English language words, are derived from many other languages, and that makes it difficult for the understanding and pronunciation of those words. But if you're exposed to many languages, then that is almost an obvious thing to that reader, and it makes it much easier for them to be exposed to larger words and harder consonant sounds that a lot of readers struggle with. So do you find that to be true as well?
Yes, it's so interesting. Usually, when you learn the second language and then the third language seems easier.
Mhm.
So, and when you talk about the homophones, they sound very similar. For example, we hear a lot of Chinese words, English words as well. For example, tofu, actually, how do we say that in Mandarin? Doufu
Mhm.
sound very similar. Or
Mhm.
is it ha, like kung fu? Then
Mhm.
in Mandarin is gong fu.
Mhm.
If you like to play bowling, then that's 保龄球. So actually, you already know a lot of Mandarin words, but we just never make the connection. So
Mhm.
how nice would it be if we can give them something they can connect those languages and say, wow, I'm amazed. Actually, I live in a place I can hear a lot of different languages and I know the meaning of those languages.
Right. And I think it's more important now because the world is becoming more diverse in not only culture and language, but in just things that we see. I mean, I can imagine, 10 or 15 years ago, I didn't see very many signboards or any kind of business items that had language, different languages, but now it's very common, and you don't even think about, after a while, you just know what it says. But again, it's kind of through repetition. You've seen it so much, and they give you the English, they give you the Chinese, they give you the Spanish, and you're just like, oh, I know what that means. So, and I think it's kind of the same way. And I do love that the language does really help connect readers to reading, which is kind of what I'm all about. So I'm excited to have you here today. So I want to know what the actual inspiration was for this book, Little Bun, a bilingual story about feelings.
Yes, Little Bun actually was inspired by my daughter and how she embraces our big moves, international moves,
Mhm.
how she embraces her new school, the changing of school, um, the meeting new friends, making new friends, and also the cultures we have at home. We are a bicultural family, and then how she embraces her heritage language, Mandarin Chinese. So all of that inspired the writing of this book. And I also want to mention, because she loves to write and she loves animals, so she is actually the illustrator for this book, and she's the co-author as well.
Wow, that's very impressive. We love children's authors as well. And I do mean an author that is a child rather than an adult writing a children's book. So that's amazing. So, what is it that you hope that readers will glean from reading your book, Little Bun?
Little Bun, the title is Little Bun, a bilingual storybook about feelings.
Mhm.
So this book is for young readers, for parents, for caregivers, to help children to read the book, follow Little Bun, and then to see what he does when he encounters big feelings, and also what he says. And then it's almost like you follow the adventure of a Little Bun through the big feelings, and then ask the little kids, what do you do when you are happy? What
Mhm.
do you do when you are sad? Can you tell me? I
Mhm.
think that is just the hardest thing. Sometimes we all have big feelings, but sometimes it's so hard to say, but our behavior reflects that.
Mhm.
So little babies cannot talk. That's why it is so hard to see, do they need to have a change of diaper, or do they need to have more milk, or something is not wrong, or they are giggling. Why are they giggling? Something must trigger that happiness. So I want Little Bun to be a guide that little kids, a little story from simple words, simple sentences in two languages, Mandarin and English, and they can feel brave and to talk about their feelings and tell people they need help and it's okay.
All right, absolutely loved it, and I think it's just beautifully illustrated. I'm shocked to find out that your daughter did that illustration work. It's absolutely beautiful. I love the fact that you do include English and Mandarin Chinese as part of it, because I think that is a learning skill so that they can learn the simple language that you're including in the book in a second language, which also makes it accessible for, in the reverse, we have, Mandarin speaking children wanting to learn English, or, occasionally we will have, people in a home that one only speaks English and one only speaks Mandarin, and we've got this together in a book, which I think is just brilliant. And not to mention just the basis of the book and talking to kids about feelings. I think it's one of the subjects that we avoid when talking to kids is why do we have these feelings? How do we deal with these feelings? How do you choose which feeling to have? Is it okay to feel this way? Should we not feel that way? Or should we feel a certain way when things happen? And sometimes, especially as a child and even as adults, sometimes the emotions are just so big you don't know how to name them. And I think that that is a good start for little kids to kind of have a basis in understanding that, emotions are emotions, feelings are feelings, and it's okay. which I think is amazing in and of itself, without anything else that you added in there, but adding in the language factor to it and the beautiful illustrations. I think this is just a brilliant book, and I would highly recommend it to anyone that has a young reader. And sit them down and talk to them about feelings. Sit them down and talk to them about bilingual language books and learning multi-languages. So I think that's an excellent starting point for any young reader to get them going. So if you could go all the way back to the beginning, when this book was just a little teeny idea in your head, what do you wish you had known, or that somebody had told you about writing and publishing a bilingual book?
Wow. It's such a small question, but it's so big. Well, this is my second book. So I thought when I first started, it's like, oh, this is great. We're going to do this. We are on top of this. Then I was like, as we're going, it's like, because this is a different format, and this is more like a picture book. And my first book is a word book, so it's a little bit different. And then we try to change the size. So when you change one thing, everything changes. So I wish I had somebody guided me through the formatting, the trimming, and when you go printing, there'll be something else. So I definitely think will be really good was to kind of have a plan for all the logistics. Then it becomes like your story becomes almost like secondary. It's very important. But if you want to have the book published, there's certain format and then some dimension, certain things you need to take care of. I think that should be planned ahead of time. And it's better to have somebody who really knows about your book and the size, and to help you guide you through that, or there'll be headache, as you walk on the as you're walking on the path.
Yes, well, and that's what I say, and I do a lot of coaching with authors to try and get them through the publishing process. And one of the things they're always surprised that I say is you should always pick your trim size, or the size of your book. And so what we're talking about is the dimensions of your book, how far it is from the spine to the front edge of the book. How tall is the book? So you want to know what that is. And then secondary, you need to have some idea of either a word count or a page count. And then the third thing is whether or not you're going to have illustrations. And then, of course, if the answer is yes, how many illustrations? Now, those are all technical aspects, and they don't necessarily have to be addressed before you write the story, but they are going to be the first thing you need to know after you have the story written, because it's going to affect everything else. It's going to affect where the text of the story falls, where the illustrations are going to fall, and all of that becomes a very technical aspect. So again, even if you don't have a choice, if you're not absolutely sure, have some choices. Like, children's books are kind of all over the map with sizing. And the reason for that is because young readers are not as dexterous in holding a book and turning the pages at the same time. It's why they're generally oversized. There are some standard sizes, but what I would say is if you're thinking about writing a children's book or you're working on a children's book, go to a bookstore. Take your tape measure or a ruler, measure some books. Look at the different sizes, see what size you like, what you think is common for, whatever topic or subject you're writing about. If you can't get to a bookstore, you can go on Amazon. If you scroll down right before the reviews, you can see the product details. It actually gives you the size of the book, and you can see common sizes and themes coming up in children's books. So have some idea of that. And I think that right there will help you kind of bridge that gap, because the problem does come in where you think, oh, well, I'd like to have this size. But then you realize, oh, wait, I have to use premium color with that. Plus there's an upcharge because they have to recalibrate the machine because it's an odd size. And oh, does it fit on a shelf? Well, some shelves, but not all shelves. Are they going to have to set it sideways on the shelf? Yeah. So go to the bookstore, go look at what is available, how they fit on the shelf, how they may stick out or not stick out from the other books, and then make your decision. I think that's always a wise choice, and you're absolutely right. It can affect everything. But, as I always say, even if you get it completely wrong, it's not the end of the world. You can always go back and fix it.
Yes, what you just said, shared, is so invaluable. And you also mentioned about how many pages. That's what I learned the first time. And that was also extremely important. And combine all the information. It sounds like we're not talking about the story, the writing of the story, but all of these impact how you produce the book. And that is very important information.
Right. It's all the technical aspects of formatting and publishing your book. And, for general information, most picture books, which basically what that means is there's equal weight to the words and the pictures in the story, meaning the text and the illustrations of the story, although they do need to be able to stand alone. So if the text is removed, you still should be able to get a sense of the story from the illustrations. If the illustrations are removed, you still understand what the story is about. Those are generally done in what they call a 32-page layout, which means at the beginning of the story part of your book should cover about 32 pages. And then you have about approximately 8 pages beyond that to do your front and back matter, such as your title page, your publication page, any kind of dedication page about the author page. Come and follow me and call me for this, that, or the other thing. It's not set in stone. As I like to say, there are no rules about writing and publishing. There are only guidelines and guide rails, which you need to listen to. Yes, you can go over the railing, but you better have a good reason for doing it.
I like that.
But for the most part, as long as you're writing a children's picture book, as long as the story is contained within 32 pages, approximately, it could be a little over, a little under, but that your total overall page count from between the covers, not including the cover, is no more than 40 pages. You should be just about perfect. And, as far as the word counts, typically picture books are 1,000 words or less, with the sweet spots coming somewhere in around 650 to 700 words. And it could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less. And I've seen people do picture books that go up to 1,400 words, although I would not strongly suggest that, but it is possible. Again, like I said, you can go over the side, just have a good reason for it. So, all right. So what do you hope that readers are going to get are going to say about your book, Little Bun, a bilingual story about feelings, in like 10 to 20 years from now? Do you think this is going to be the normal way we do books, or you think this is still going to be an outlier?
Yeah, I think we talk about feelings now. We talk about feelings before. I believe we'll talk about feelings even more in the future. I want the readers they have read a book now, and in 10 to 20 years, they say, I want to read this book to my child.
Mhm.
I want to read this book, to someone special, because it is important. It helped me to talk about my feelings. I don't feel awkward. I feel it's okay to ask for help. Or because the Little Bun is a well-known Chinese dish. It's like the dumpling, but it's a steamed with a savory or sweet feelings inside. So maybe they would like to make some food, some special dish. A comfort food. They want to make it for the special little one, and they want to at the same time share this book with that little special little one, and to talk about it. How do you feel when you eat this thing my mom made or grandma made? How do you feel? Why you feel this way? Does it make you happy, or does it make you miss somebody? I want this book to be able to let people feel this is something they can hold on to, can pass on to the next child.
Well, I agree with you. I think sometimes when we don't deal with our feelings as young children, they come out in very unusual ways when we're adults. So I agree with you there. But I also wanted to ask you about the formatting, about doing it in a bilingual way. Do you think this is going to be more common going forward in, say, 10 to 20 years? Or do we think it's still going to be an unusual aspect for children's books?
Oh, that is such a beautiful question. We do see a lot of bilingual books. A lot of times they're not really textbook oriented, but more like to teach the language per se. And I believe, the story format, the storytelling format, I believe we're going to see more of that. And then not just, all languages, English with another language combination, because we are already kind of seeing that gradually now, like we can see that in apps and some books that you can see different kind of language combination in one book title. I think that is important, because that will help kids to make connections with another culture, with another language. And more importantly, I think, is that when we read a book together, what make the story more interesting. So if all kids can read in English here in the US, and then somebody can also read it in Chinese, and they can say that they can share that book with their friends. And that's very important. So if you eat empanadas, then you can say, oh, I also eat this thing. And then, oh, how do you do that? How do you eat that? How do you prepare that? So Little Bun can spark a curiosity. Say, what is the Little Bun? Oh, Little Bun actually is a Chinese food my grandma makes at home. And maybe you should come over and try it one time. Let's read a story together. We can read in English together. How about let me read a few sentences for you in Mandarin? I think a lot of times when kids are exposed to a different language, that also helps them to understand the other person. Why? Because then you understand why sometimes some people, when they speak a language, they make mistakes in English, because that's how that language constructs. And they need to use a big brain power to speak English, for example. So that is a way to help kids to develop empathy, to let them understand why sometimes people forget to add an S, in the third singular, situation, person, or plural, and to add this, because in their native language they don't have that. Right? Is that interesting? Why is that? Language is about thinking, it's about culture. So if we can just spark a little curiosity, I think we can go a long way.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And I think it also helps create a better community, because when we understand how each culture and language interconnects and stands separately from what we know and understand, then we can accept and understand the people in that culture. And we do have, situations in this country where, there are cultural dividing lines, and we need to try and blur those. In what better way than to have, the kids learn about each other so that there doesn't seem to be a distinction between.
Yes. And I think they also could probably get closer to their friends and
Yes.
even to their own heritage culture. Is it okay if I share a story?
No, go right ahead.
When I lived in Hawaii, well, we want to send our, all the positive things to our friends in Hawaii. I used to live in Hawaii for a little while. And at that time, my kids were little. So I would bring the Mandarin program into my children's elementary school. And one year during the Lunar New Year, we decided to do a celebration. We want to make dumplings. So there were like over 100 students, and the teachers are so wonderful. And they say, maybe we should invite families as well. We say, sure. It was incredible. We have almost 150, almost 180 people come in the big school cafeteria. One grandmother, I think they're the third generation or fourth generation, Japanese American, Chinese American, kind of mixed family. She said, my grandchild never want to touch the dumpling I made at home. This is the first time I saw him trying it.
Mm.
He came to me, said, this is actually very good, Grandma.
Well, yeah, I think sometimes, as difficult it is for, people who are, just born Americans, only speak English, and for them to understand children from families that speak other language or maybe from other countries. I think also for that child, they feel like they need to obscure or downplay that culture and that language almost to fit in. So I agree that this is an excellent way for them to make a connection and to kind of erase that distinction and that need to hide being different. I think it's a way to celebrate our differences rather than to kind of point to them as a problem.
It's to celebrate together and taste
Yes.
more yummy food.
Absolutely. It's like, people ask me, and they're like, well, what kind of food do you like? I'm like, all of it.
I'm with you.
It's like, bring me food, bring me lots of it, and I will be a happy person. So it's like, I always find it so interesting to just mix and match and find out, like, all the different flavors, and it's just the different ways basic food are prepared. It's just amazing to me how, the same simple ingredients, egg, flour, and water can be put together in every culture in a different way. So
I love it. Yes.
I do too. All right. So what was the biggest challenge for you in writing and publishing your book?
I think for this one, the challenge, what I said earlier about the dimension, it was probably about how I took when I was writing the story with my daughter, was fear, because how I deliver this, is this going to deliver the meaning, what I really want to deliver to the children readers in both languages. I think fear is probably the biggest challenge. And I believe this is probably a big one, but this is so important. I think because of fear, I also kind of helped me to move forward, because I have a co-author, I have an illustrator who is very important, and that I want to show her this is possible. So as that said, even though there's fear, I also see possibilities. So I have to move forward to publish this book.
Right. And what you mentioned here is pretty common. I mean, even I have, these feelings of imposter. It's like we talk about the enoughs. Am I good enough, smart enough, fast enough? clear enough, whatever, it's the enoughs. It's all under the imposter syndrome because we worry about how it's going to be received and whether people are going to laugh. Because let's be honest about it. It's like when you're writing a book, you are literally opening up your soul and handing it to people to shred to pieces. And it's really hard to do that, which is why most people don't end up publishing books. Out of all the people who want to write a book, there's only a certain percentage of them that actually do. There's only a certain percentage that actually finish. And then there's only a very small percentage that actually publish exactly for this reason. And so what I say to that is, and I'm glad you said you did push through because you had more important thoughts, is oftentimes when we're feeling these feelings, it's because we are succeeding. Because let's face it, if we were failing, I don't think our internal critics and our internal self-doubt would come forward. It would just kind of let us merrily go along and make mistake after mistake because it knows we're not succeeding. It's only in those moments when you are actually succeeding, when you are doing something, when you are pursuing, your goals and dreams, that those critics are going to come forward. And I think they're challenging you to see if you're serious or not, if you really have the passion to see it through. So I'm always here to celebrate with those who struggle with that and make it to the other side, because that is proof that you had the passion. And as we can tell, you certainly have the readers and it's being well received. So bravo.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So I want to know, what advice would you give to other authors and writers who want to offer their books in multiple languages?
The most important thing is that focus on your book, the story, in your first language. So the language you're writing right now. And when you're done with that, make sure you have a person, not just bilingual, but can also bicultural, understand the language, understand the culture to do the translation of your book. And if you're writing a children's book, you need somebody who's really familiar with the children's literature. And then if you're writing for older children, then you need somebody who also read that kind of, a genre. And then last but not least, you would like to have a master reviewer or consultant to read your book in both languages and to make sure it can give you very solid feedback.
Right. And so we sort of talked about this a little bit in the green room, and I want to start this off with telling you absolutely do not go to Google Translate to translate your book into another language. It's not going to work. It's going to bring you a world of problems. Don't go there. Don't start there. I mean, it's fine when you're trying to translate that something's written and you need to read it, or if you're just doing common language, but for a written book that's going to be published and out in the world for your lifetime and beyond, get it right. Get it right the first time. Go to someone who is a licensed language translator that understands the culture, understands the culture not only of the language that you're doing, but the culture of that kind of story in that country. And always ask for an interpreter or a translator in the country of origin you want to go to, not in the language. We were talking about this. There are so many dialects of Spanish. There's so many dialects of Chinese and other languages out there. It's like, so make sure you're saying, I want to translate this for China or for Taiwan or for Vietnam or something of this nature. So you're making sure you're getting the right translator. Now, you yourself said that you do not do translations, but that you are a review consultant. Is that correct? Do you want to go ahead and talk about that?
Thank you. So basically what I've been doing is I do master review, which means that people have the contacts or a book or translated, and then I will review the book in both languages and to make sure everything's correct, it's translated correctly. If there's any culture situation, I'll give feedback, I'll point out the problem and why. So that will give them an insight to work forward, to move forward with the project. And the other thing is I I also should I recommend if people are interested in finding multilingual or translators. There's a American Translators Association in the US, and then that's a good place to start. American Translators Association. I used to be a member, and then the members there, they're serious with their work and they're proud of their work, because that's where you start. And there are different languages, so you will be able to find people who can work with you. That's where you can start.
Yes, that is a valuable resource. Thank you for sharing that with us. And we will have a link to that in the show notes for you, as well as we'll have a link if you want to reach out to Amanda about consulting after you've had it translated. I'm not sure, do you do all languages, or are there just certain languages that you do this review?
Right. Yeah. Right now, I do reviewing in the bilingual books like English and Mandarin Chinese, English and Chinese. Yes.
So just English and Chinese languages, right? Okay. All right. Just want to make sure we're not sending you somebody that's trying to translate it into Spanish or something like that. All right. All right. So what keeps you motivated?
To share the joy of reading together with kids, to share with kids the amazing world of languages and cultures. Because as we are going into the next generation, and then the AI world, people connections are actually even more important. To hold a book, to read a book, to tell a story, to connect with children and help them to understand others in a different language, or both language, or 3, 4, 5 multilingual. I think that's a great way to bring joy to people and get us closer, not further, with each other.
I absolutely agree, and I'm so excited. So what's next?
I am working on a project, my third book project, that's my first Chinese sentences. There are mini stories, also bilingual, so kids can use simple words and simple sentences to tell funny stories. That is what I'm working on right now.
All right. Well, we're very excited. Any estimation on a release date? Should we be looking for that in 2023 or 2024?
2024 for the book 1 for this series.
Okay, great. Well, we'll be looking forward to that. Of course, we'll want to have you come back on and talk about that book when it's available. So here on season 2, we've been focusing on reviews. So I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to give us a review of Little Bun, a bilingual story about feelings.
Wow. Little Bun, a bilingual story, a bilingual book about bilingual storybook about feelings, is a book that helps kids to develop social emotional learning with not just words, but expressions and sentences, and understand it's okay to ask for help when they have big feelings.
Awesome. I love it. 5-star review there. So the reason we're doing that, the reason we're putting our guests on the spot to get them to write a review is, number one, it's not easy to write a review about your own personal book. It's like writing a review about your style. How do you do that? But we're also doing that, and they're succeeding in showing you how easy it is to write a review. If they can write a review about something so very personal to them, then you can write a book about one that you read. We've talked about this endlessly here on season 2. We want to encourage you, anytime you read a book, whether you like it, whether you don't like it, whether you want to recommend it to someone else, please, please, please leave a review. You can leave a review where you purchased the book. If you cannot remember where you purchased the book or you received the book for free, you can always go to goodreads.com, find the book and leave a review. You can also go to BookBub, finding either the author or the book, and leave a review there. Also, you can leave reviews on social media as a recommendation for that book. You can also reach out to the author. I'm sure they would be more than happy to hear from you. And of course, we want you to tag an author anytime you put that out on social media. We always list that information for you in the show notes if you read one of the books that we brought to you here, so that you can tag the author. And do reach out to the author. This is one of the few ways that they do get feedback on their books, and they so appreciate that. And of course, you can always go try and leave a review on Amazon. They do not require you to have purchased the book. You did get higher ranking for a verified purchaser, which means somebody who did purchase the book from Amazon. One of the few caveats that they do have on Amazon for a book review is that you must have spent at least $50 on products from Amazon within the last 12 months. So if you've reached that plateau, then you should be able to review the book. But if you're concerned, please go to the community guidelines that they have on Amazon, and it will give you all the rules and guidelines for leaving reviews. And that applies to not only books, but all products on Amazon. But as I said, don't forget Goodreads. Don't forget some of the other retailers such as Barnes & Noble, Apple Books, Kobo Books, Walmart, Target. There are so many different other retailers, and don't forget your small press and independent bookstores that they will also allow you to leave reviews for them there. So where can listeners find your book?
Okay, I do have an author page on Amazon, and my books can be found on Amazon, and also Barnes and Noble. I believe other places, I think Walmart. And one more thing is I want to support local indie bookstores. So shopbooks.org also sell my book, so you can search for that. And then I definitely want to see the bookstores maintained. So we would like to definitely support our local bookstores and indie bookstores.
Okay, well, it looks like Amanda's books are available worldwide. So if you can shop independent bookstores, we do appreciate that. You can go to your independent bookstore. If they do not have it on the shelf, you can ask for them to order it for you. And I'm sure Amanda would appreciate that. Also, do you have signed book copies if people want to order those?
Yes, if they are interested in the signed copies, they can come to my website. www.misspandachinese.com, contact, and just send you a message and let me know, and I'll be glad to arrange that for you.
All right, awesome. Of course, we will have that link for you in the show notes. As always, you're also active on social media. So what platforms can they follow you on?
I am Miss Panda Chinese on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, X, and Thread as well. Yes. So
all right.
Mostly
Awesome.
active on Facebook and Instagram.
All right. We will have links to all of those social media accounts for Amanda, Miss Panda Chinese, and let you connect up with her so you can follow her and see her progress. Do you have any upcoming events, giveaways, newsletters, or anything else to download that you would like to share with our audience before we jump over to our tip of the week?
Yes. So in October, it is going to be the Bilingual Child Month. So I team up with Multicultural Children's Book Day. I'm going to have an IG Live, and also we're going to have a panel talking about why bilingual books are important. And I would love to have you to join me and share your thoughts. And then I have other experts joining me to talk about Bilingual Children Month, and also why bilingual books are important.
Awesome. Well, we will actually go ahead and add that to our show notes so that you can link up with Amanda for that event. Was there anything else that you wanted to include before we jump over and talk about our tip of the week? We're going to talk about the Kidlit community.
Donna, I want to thank you, and I'm so grateful for what you do and your treasure trove of all the amazing knowledge and interviews and resources and support to the authors. So thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
Oh, you're very welcome, and thank you for that. As I said, you know, I gather information because I'm constantly seeking more information, and I feel like it's a gift to share with the world. So I try to do that, but I do appreciate you thanking me for that. So we're going to go ahead and talk about our tip of the week. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Kidlit community and how important it is to children's authors. You know, there are many ways to reach your audience, but one of the particular ways for children books, for especially picture books, to get out into the world is a connection to other children's books, especially picture books. Picture books are quick reads, and generally when a kid reads one or two, they're going to want another one and another one and another one. So connecting up with other authors in the kidlit community and doing blasts about multiple books, whether that's newsletters, whether that is in sales dates or something like that, or offering them in a package deal, or doing giveaways or that sort of thing, are always very helpful. I know that some authors feel like you're in competition with your other children's authors. I refute that. I think that our only competition is the space on that bookshelf and trying to get each other there. If I'm on that bookshelf and I recommend you, then you end up there. You can recommend somebody else. Same thing. If you're there and I'm not there, recommend me. It is a cohesive thing that we can do together. We're not in competition with each other. We're just in competition with the open space on that bookshelf. So do remember that, and try to reach out and help fellow authors. You know, rising boats rise together. So try to lift each other up. And then the other thing I want to talk about is something that we talked about a little bit in the show, is about the difference between simplicity and overwhelm. And what happens is, you know, we see this process of writing a book as a big, overwhelming project. And this happens with anything in life. We look at the big tapestry and think, I could never do that. But if you break it down and look at it one thread at a time and how it's woven together, then it becomes much simpler. It becomes little tiny tasks and steps that you can certainly do. So the next time you're feeling overwhelmed, try and step back and look at just what you can do in the next 20 minutes or the next day. That's all you need to worry about. Eventually, you will get the tapestry done. You will have climbed the mountain. Your book will be ready. So take that into consideration. Think about simplicity. Stay away from the overwhelm. Again, it's just because you're seeing it as the finished product and not seeing all the steps and the progress you're making. And the last thing I want to say is share your experience. That's what I do. It's one of my call signs, is to say that if I learn something, I want to share it. Share it with other authors, share it with other people who want to write a book. There's nothing more uplifting to book authors and writers than to see more books, more diverse books, more ideas, more thoughts. The more that we can put out there, the more that we can encourage and entice readers to read our books. And therefore, if we're working together, we can recommend each other, which is highly effective above so many other things in the marketing and promotion sphere. So just remember, share your experience, tell the world, let them know, let them see you, because when we do that, as my mother used to say, when you drag the monster out of the dark and you give it a name, he's not scary anymore. So drag that experience out into the daylight, give it a name, and share it with the world. All right, that's all I have for this week. Of course, there's always so much more we could talk about, and there's so much more we could talk about all the topics and subjects that we brought up in the show. Of course, if you would like to know more information in detail about any of the topics or subjects that we've covered in this episode of The Writer's Parachute, please do reach out to us. You can leave us a note in the comments. You can reach out to us at info@writersparachute.com. or you can leave a comment with one of the podcast shows what you're watching on. So just let us know and we'll be happy to get back to you. Of course, I'm always so thankful to our guest, and I want to thank Amanda for being here today. And as always, I'm so thankful and grateful to be the host here on The Writer's Parachute, guiding author and writer dreams to a perfect landing. And I hope that you find this as a safe space for your dreams to land well too. Until next time, bye everyone.
Thank you.